Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's Jose here, welcoming you to another episode of Amazing Worlds, where today I am going to be reviewing the War Stories comic collection by Northern Irish / American writer Garth Ennis. Now, Garth Ennis needs no introduction whatsoever in the world of comics. Very prolific, hugely successful, highly regarded, highly nominated writer of series, probably better known than for War Stories. So, Preacher, his magnum opus. He had a 9-year run on the Punisher series for Marvel Comics. He also wrote the really horrific, the Terrible series. I mean terrible in a sort of, it was horrendous to read. It was really scary type. Not doing a very good job of this. The Crossed series, there you go, with Jason Burrows. He also had a great run on the Hellblazer comic. So plus many more things. But every now and then, in between the weirder and the supernatural and the other projects that he embarks on, he dips into War Stories. Now, there's another one called Battlefields out there, but War Stories basically is sent, most of them, separate individual stories. They can be read on their own. It's not a series. You don't have to follow it. Literally, each volume collects about 3, maybe 5 stories centered around World War II, most of them, except for a couple. One is set during the Spanish Civil War, and another one set in the Golan Mount War in Israel in 1973. But most of them Second World War stories. All of them fantastically researched and in high detail. I mean by that you can actually, the back of the book, you've got the blurb and the bibliography of where Garth Ennis got his references from. So when you get in the images the details of the planes, of the tanks, of the uniforms, of where events took place here in volume 2, there's another bibliography there. So this one has got 4 stories, and for each one of them there's about 5 books quoted in every single one. So it is clearly a labor of love for Garth Ennis to delve into the stories and the surroundings of World War II, and most definitely worth having a look if you are into that sort of thing, or you fancy something a little bit different. Now, of course, I need to talk about the artwork, and the first couple of volumes are a little bit inconsistent because each story is drawn by a different but hugely talented artist, and he's got the cream of the crop of British comics to work with him. So in volume 1 you've got David Lloyd, so the artist of V for Vendetta, Cameron Kennedy, who's done quite a few comics, Carlos Ezquerra, co-creator of Judge Dredd, Spanish artist, rest in peace, and Gary Erskine, another Northern Irish artist. They met in Ennis's early beginnings of his career. I've met him a couple of times, absolutely wonderful guy. So very talented artists. In volume 2 we've got Dave Gibbons, co-creator, artist in the Watchmen iconic series, but also Martha Washington, John Higgins, who was the colorist in Watchmen as well, David Lloyd again for V for Vendetta, Chris Weston worked in The Filth with Grant Morrison, and a couple of the projects there. And in volume 3, Matt Martin, Keith Burns, and then Tomas Ira, Argentinian artist who does all the art in volume 4. And for me, actually, regardless of how talented all the other artists are, is with Tomas Ira, when he that the blend of the storytelling and the art really gelled together, and the stories become consistent, and you get the feel that finally we hit our stride, and I wish we had more, because that's when things really, in terms of the art style and the color, that was the perfect blend. And I think maybe that's why after volume 3 and volume 4, Garth Ennis is stuck with just Thomas as the main artist. Now I have to say, all the stories, they're not depicting specific battles. Well, obviously they are, because they are historically placed accurately. But what I mean to say is that it's not about, the stories are not about battles. They're about the people that take place in those battles, and the human stories behind the situations of war. And that's the genius of Ennis. He gets you to really connect with the characters that are being depicted on the page. I mean, for me, there's a couple that really stuck out. One of them is in volume 2, the one drawn by Spanish artist Carlos Ezquerra, which is set in the Spanish Civil War, and is this moment where, in the middle of the battlefield, in a hole, they have been surrounded in the middle of a bombing, and soldiers of the different sides end up spending the night together. So you got a German, an Irishman, a Spanishman, I think it's a Frenchman. So all from different nationalities, they're all fighting on different sides of the war, but they share a common humanity, which the day after, when the bombing is over and they go back to the sides, they go back to being soldiers fighting for their side. And then we get a nice epilogue as to what happened to them in the old age, when the German guy now goes to Spain on holidays, because that's what German people do in the summer, and what happens then. And the other story that really, really struck a chord with me is in volume 4. It's called, let me check it out for you. It's actually in volume 3, and it's called The Last German Winter. And this is just after the aftermath of World War II being finished. It's a battalion of German soldiers and civilians going through a forest, battling the cold, working together. I think it's like French, maybe French civilian, but anyway. So opposing side, or Polish civilians and a German squadron, but they're working together to get through the winter, through this forest. They're trying to make their way back home. So you really empathize with the characters. But remember, these are Nazis, but you know, like I said before, it's the human connection. And then when you feel a bit of emotions and a bit of sympathy for these German soldiers, then Garth Ennis hits you. He delivers the punch, and he does a bait and switch, and all that emotion and all that empathy that you have developed for these characters, it just reminds you what the war was about, what these people did, and it's just absolutely fantastic. It is a great piece of storytelling and story writing. And finally, just to show off, I actually have my volume 1 signed by all the artists that took place in the art. So here on this page, so that's David Lloyd's signature. Then we've got Gary Erskine, Chris Weston, John Higgins, and Dave Gibbons. And in volume 2, I also got it signed by all the artists that drew any one of the stories. So here, that's Gary Erskine's signature. Here at the top is Cam Kennedy, the wonderful Carlos Ezquerra, and at the bottom, David Lloyd. Again, there you go. That's what comic collecting does to you. But anyway, this is all I've got for today. Thank you ever so much for watching. As usual, please like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Take loads and loads of care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.